Welcome back to another episode of the CRL Podcast. My name is Caleb Smith, driver of the 54 truck and ARCA car on Monday and Wednesday nights, joined by Jacob and Rob.
This is your boy, Jacob Grant, the driver of the 19 in the Truck and ARCA series and owner of Grant Designs.
And it's your other boy, Rob Sherwood, aka Ron Sherwood, driver of the 93 SMB truck on Monday, ARCA car on Wednesday.
And on today's episode, we are joined by Lane Hosler, two-time Truck Series Champion. But we are going to let Jacob have the floor for a minute, kind of talk about some of the ARCA series changes that were made for the season. It's going to start in 2 weeks on April 16th. Jacob, what are some of the changes that the league has gone through before we start?
So originally, whenever me and Chris had talked about starting the CRL ARCA series, we didn't want it to be the exact same as the truck series. We kind of wanted it to be a little bit different and use it as a league to try new things and test certain things that we don't really get the opportunity to test and change in the truck series. So it originally started off with a win and you're in point system, and then it's an 8 regular season schedule with 4 playoffs, and the 4 playoffs was going to be 12 drivers make it. They just point their way through the 4 races, and whoever accumulated the most points ends up being the champion, kind of like a chase style. So the changes that we made is we're not going to make it a win and you're in. It's going to be point based for the entire season, your first 8 races of the regular season, and then the final 4. Only 10 drivers will make it into that playoff section, so it tightens up the field a little bit, makes everybody have to practice a little bit more, and basically it's just going to be chase style. You go out there and put on the best races that you can, and even if you go out and finish top 5 every race but never get a win, you can still be the champion. So, and it's honestly all about consistency and who can be the best driver.
Well, it kind of reminds me of the CRL Truck Series before we went to the playoff system, where it was just all points based for 10 races. But a guy that we have on, Lane Hosler, like I said, two-time series champion in the Truck Series, won both of his championships while it was that point system. Lane, how are you doing?
Hey guys, not too bad. How are you?
Good, good. Um, we're gonna hop right into the questions. We know you kind of have a tornado situation, so we're gonna try to go through this. So if at any point tonight, we have to stop and abruptly end the podcast, Mother Nature is not on our side. With tornadoes and everything in Lane's area. So we're gonna hop straight into the questions. Lane, number one, winningest driver in CRL Truck Series history with 23, two-time champion, 165 starts, second most in series history. How long have you been with CRL, and how did you find the league?
I joined iRacing and CRL in 2020. I think myself, like a lot of people, needed something to do while everything was shut down. And then at the time I was racing dirt bikes in the real world, and when our season kind of got put on hold, I had free time and extra money that I had kind of banked for the race season, and ended up buying a PC, and I had an old G29 wheel. I just used that for probably about a year. Um, it was I think it was like mid July ish when Fred started CRL, and I stumbled across it on one of the iRacing forums and kind of joined, and it went from there.
We all kind of got back into well, I know I did anyway. Sim racing in 2020. I know Jacob and I did at least because we had put it back together our computers and started to get back into it around that time. And it was kind of fun getting Fred's perspective of when he started the league. During COVID and everything, and all these people kind of coming into the league. Did you think that you would have the level of success that you have had in the league thus far, and I'm sure for the foreseeable future.
So realistically, no. It wasn't. I don't think it was until season 3 or 4 until I actually got my first win. I racked up a ton of top 5 finishes, a couple of seconds, but it always seemed like either Joey or Tyler or Josh were a little bit better early on.
You know, you bringing up those names. I remember racing with those guys um, in the earlier days of CRL. Um, all very talented drivers. Also champions in the series. To kind of pass off one of the questions to um, Rob here. I'm gonna let him take the floor and ask the next question.
Yeah, so obviously, you have a very storied background with CRL, just having been how long you've been in the league. So, can you speak to anything that you really like? What's the biggest difference between the early days of CRL to what you see now?
I I really don't think it's changed all that much. I think the level of competition has definitely probably quadrupled. Um, Early on, I want to say there were probably maybe 4 guys who I knew I had to worry about, and then like every now and then we'd have somebody pop in and just destroy us. I think that happened for probably another 4 or 5 seasons. Um, but really, over the last eight-ish seasons, the level of competition has just skyrocketed. Um, it definitely there for a while. I kind of used CRL as a practice for Monday nights, and then I was doing a money league on Tuesdays. So I would use CRL to test stuff, and then I'd try to utilize that in the money league, and then it didn't always work out, but um, yeah, now I think it's flipped. Like this league has gotten so good throughout the entire field that you can't slack on anybody at all now.
Lane, you have 165 starts and 23 wins. That is second most in starts in CRO history and first most, or the most, in wins, beating Joey Stiers by one. And that kind of brings me back with saying how many wins you have. It brings me back to 2 seasons ago, where you had 6 wins in the season and fell just short of the championship. Do you want to backtrack on that and tell us what you were kind of dealing with winning 6 races and then not being able to secure the championship?
To be honest, no. Uh, that that one kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. I thought for sure I was going to be able to have that on lock, and you guys you guys are good. Like everybody in this league is so good, and even when I was winning races that season, um, it didn't feel it did not feel dominant at all. Like I had good strategy. I put myself in good spots, and realistically, I just capitalized when I could. Um, I think most of those races I could have lost at any second.
I actually, it kind of almost felt like, I don't want to say a season of destiny, but obviously when you win that many races, you start to look at it because honestly, I tried to take some of your strategies. It felt like there were a few times where you really kind of got off strategy, and you were allowing yourself to maximize your track time, and you would catch a caution, and it would kind of flip your track position, and put you in a position where you could restart up front. And so I'll be honest with you. I tried to emulate that last season because, it did put you in some good spots, and you did a great job of capitalizing on all of those opportunities. Honestly, so I know you say it didn't feel dominant, but from everybody else's perspective, it was like, man, like it was like it kept turning up golden.
I more often than not, I would finish a race and I would stand up and be drenched in sweat. Like I don't I don't think a lot of people realize how much work actually goes into being really, really fast. And I don't even consider myself really, really fast. Like, there are guys that put in 10 times the amount of work that I do. And it's just like to be at like a Coke series level is just absolutely unreal.
Yeah, you have to put a lot of sim time in to be at their level. It's like even on fixed setups, racing against some of those guys, I've had the privilege to, and a lot of top split um, officials, and even just running on the same setup, there's a huge difference there, and it's like how do you how do you do that? And I honestly I really don't practice that much except for 10 to 15 laps in the practice session before the races on Monday nights, and um, speaking back on to everybody being fast, like we talk about it every week with all of our guests in here, and it's probably going to keep happening. But everybody in this league is fast now, and it's not that they weren't fast before, but it's like everybody is faster than faster than that. But from first to 20th, it's not that far of a difference. It's great.
And I think that's something to say for the league too, because even like some of the guys that early on maybe weren't quite up to par with the top five are now. I think there's a lot of mentorship that comes with this league. There's all kinds of people who are willing to help and willing to give tips and just help everybody out to make like even a better broadcast product. So it's really a good thing to be a part of this league.
Yeah, it's been really cool to watch because I think it speaks to the guys that have come in and started racing with us regularly the last few seasons. But I think it really has everyone with maybe even without realizing it has actually elevated their game and kind of like what y'all said, there really is about 20 people that could go win every single week, and honestly there's there's even a handful outside of that that you still probably wouldn't be surprised if they were to win a race, especially at a play tracker like Daytona. I'm starting to wonder if anybody other than, Crank and Dusty and the long shot guys are going to win a play track.
That's true. They were pretty dominant last year, so
Yeah, didn't Dusty win the duel or the dash and the Daytona race?
I think so, and I think Crank won the Daytona race the year
Oh,
before
it was,
that. So.
yeah, yeah,
D-
I
yeah.
think
Those
one of
guys
them
are
won
good.
Talladega too.
Yeah, that sounds right, actually.
D- Dusty won the
Well,
duel at Daytona and Daytona, so he won back-to-back weeks. And then the following season, which was last season, Crank did the same thing, won the duel and Daytona.
That's what it was. Okay. Yeah, those guys got it figured out on the plate tracks.
Yeah, they've literally swept both seasons so far with the duel and Daytona.
that's wild, actually.
Eric Anderson's over there. When he comes to listen to this, he's going to be over there chuckling, I bet.
I mean, they
Well,
got it figured out.
they really do. They really do. It's honestly impressive.
You know, everyone
Like, no, go ahead, Caleb. I'm sorry.
everyone says that the play tracks are like, luck based, and to a certain extent I understand it, but when the same guys are always running up front and figure out a way to put themselves in that situation, at what point does that luck turn into skill? So obviously they know what they're doing, which is why they have won the races they have at Daytona, Talladega, um, and even at Atlanta they're up there, New Atlanta, of course. Um, but yeah, just it's impressive, honestly. But Rob, what were you saying?
No, just I was giving kudos to them. Honestly, it's I think you hit the nail on the head. Once you have enough experience and you start repeatedly putting yourselves in that situation, it speaks to it's more than just, finding yourself in the right spot. It's putting yourself in the right spot.
Absolutely.
But kind of along the lines of kudos and the appreciation of the talent in the league. We're gonna be a breaking news pod again this week. Last week it was Nate's sister, and her listening to the pod, and that I don't want to say relationship drama, but maybe leaving the door open for Evan down the line. Um, but I have been given the privilege to make an announcement tonight, and we're going to get some instant reaction from Lane and everybody here. Uh, so, on behalf of Chris, Fred, everybody that came before me in CRL, Lane, you are officially the second member of the CRL Hall of Fame.
Seriously,
Seriously.
you guys,
Seriously,
that's awesome. Oh,
it is.
thank you.
It's all you. I mean, you have the second most starts behind Fred, and yeah, behind Fred, and then you have the most wins. So it's well deserved. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. I got to say, I hope Joey listens to this and maybe shows back up some. So I kind of when I passed Joey, I made a point to send him a message and be like, "Hey, you need to come back to CRL because I just knocked you off of the top spot on wins." So that's awesome, you guys. Thank you so much.
Well, it's absolutely deserved. Like Jacob was saying, most wins in CRL Truck Series history, second most starts behind another CRL Hall of Famer, Fred. So, absolutely 100% deserved. And I know you're gonna keep racing with us, and I know you're gonna be seeking that third championship. Um, alongside a bunch of other people trying to seek their first and maybe become multi-time champions as well in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely I want to try to be here as much as I can and do as best I can and definitely like hang out with everybody. It's this league has really become like my Monday night bowling league of just hang out and BS and have some fun racing. So
Yeah, agreed. I pretty much mark it on my calendar weekly. It's just, it's a staple at this point. During the spring months is a little bit different for me because I have softballs on Mondays and Wednesdays. But you can bet I check my calendar or my schedule to make sure, like, oh, can I make it that night? How about this night? And at the occasional time where it interferes, it's really disheartening because it is fun to show up and shoot the shit with everybody and have fun racing and just being in the community for sure.
I can tell you something that is not fun, and that is the Xfinity series right now. We can swap over to real life motorsports if you guys want, and we can talk about that. Caleb, let's get your
Austin
thoughts on what you think about the Xfinity series.
Austin
Or what
Hill
were you
had
saying,
plenty of
Rob?
fun. Austin Hill had plenty of fun this weekend. I mean, what are you talking about?
Yeah, he wrecked a bunch of cars too.
It Rob was just talking about shooting the shit. I mean they were doing a little bit more than that.
That
That was a shit
that was the
show.
shit.
That was a shit show. It was the truck race I felt was tolerable. Um, and it's truck series. It's expected. When you watch a truck race, especially on a short track like that, you go to the Xfinity series, um, and it's it was so painful to watch, which is unfortunate because like I like watching the Xfinity series, but like they just kept knocking the shit out of each other and they kept overdriving the corners. Sammy Smith, God, it fucking sucks. It's so bad. Like why would you do that? And I know Junior isn't happy with him. We were talking about that. Um, but like it's bad for the sport, the way they're racing. Um, and I'm interested to get Rob's thoughts on it, but it's just a shit show.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disappointing. I feel like the trucks have been that for several years. And you do learn to kind of expect it. But we're big attendees of the spring Martinsville race. We try to go every spring. Normally, it's a lot colder than what it was this past weekend, and naturally, this past weekend I was unable to go, so I wouldn't have had to have worn 4 layers like I did last year. Um, but it used to be the best racing of the weekend in the Xfinity series, and it's really disappointing what it's turned into. And it's not surprising when some of those truck drivers that have moved up through the ranks are now in the Xfinity series because they're doing stuff like that. Um, as a big Dale Jr. fan, obviously I root for JRM. But it's disappointing to see stuff like that. I feel like that's 2 times in a row I've watched Taylor Gray get really get taken advantage of. He got used up in the Truck Series last year by Christian Eckes, and then he really got taken advantage of this weekend. So I think there's going to be a lot of conversation about what needs to be done to clean things up. And I know that we part of the the draw for NASCAR has been the boys have at it mentality because Shane Van Gisbergen came over and talks about he's not used to being able to hit guys in retaliation. If somebody hit him, then he knew that there would be a penalty, and it's weird to be able to kind of handle it on his own. But unfortunately, I think we're getting to the point where we can't trust these guys to police themselves. And if they can't police themselves, then at some point somebody has to do something, which may mean that NASCAR has to step in. And I know that a lot of people dread NASCAR having more rules and having to enforce more rules. But at some point, if you want to have a watchable product, and I think most people can agree that Saturday was not watchable, I turned it off after the first overtime restart or the first green white checker restart because I just I couldn't do it anymore. So at some point, if they want to continue to have people come out and watch those races and have it be a viable product, they're going to have to step in and start policing some of this somehow.
That's kind of my hot take on it. Is I absolutely dread green white checker finishes in either in iRacing or real life. Like when we get to the point of like 5 laps to go, I'm like, please everybody just hold it together. Nope. No matter what is happening on the track, like in real life, Kyle Larson could be out ahead by like 15 seconds. I don't care. It's just it feels disrespectful to the sport to re-rack it and send everybody crashing into turn one every time. It really is a nightmare for me.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
know it helps them sell tickets, but it's just it gets really overdone with the overtime restarts because like you said, it's a melee essentially.
yeah. I don't know how I feel about green white checkered finishes. I mean, if especially on certain tracks, like if the leader just gets a really good start, then 9 out of 10 chances the people in second, third, or whatever are going to race the shit out of each other, and you're not going to catch that person. So, unless everybody just wrecks and stacks it all back up, which is usually what happens at IRL or iRacing, and I I don't know. I like the overtime rule about throwing the caution if there's a wreck on the last lap or coming to the white flag and that ending the race for safety reasons, obviously. Um, but let's just let's just work on keeping it together in the last 5 laps, like Lane said. That's an option too.
I think the problem is that's not going to happen though, and it kind of speaks to what Evan touched on last week with like specifically our league, but what NASCAR has created because they've created a system where you benefit from risking it all because you're going for the win, and when you don't have any discouragement from doing some things like that, which is why I think people were initially so there you had some people so outraged over the Austin Dillon decision. While most people agreed with it, there was some people who were like, okay, well, at this point, if NASCAR is going to step in here, where else are they going to step in? So I think it's a product that NASCAR has created, but it's almost like a live by the sword, die by the sword type thing because I think people have kind of had their fill of it because it feels manufactured. If it felt natural, if it felt organic, I think it would be okay. But because you go into these situations expecting somebody to do something stupid, is now where they've got big problems.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I changed the rule for the ARCA series of point system because it's better to just finish second and suck up that you got beat than it is to wreck 2 or 3 cars and ruin somebody else's night just because you didn't get a win to advance you on to the next round or advance you into the playoffs. So I like the chase style because it proves to everyone who the better driver is. If Lane goes out and finishes top 5 every week, and he's more than likely going to be the champion, because it's going to be very hard for you to beat that. Like, you have to be the best of the best, in my opinion, to win a chase style season.
Yeah, no, agreed. It's hard to tell whether NASCAR is going to go back to that. I know that there's been some conversations about changing the playoff format, so I guess we'll see what that looks like, but it's also hard to expect them to do something like that when I see how hard they market some of the stuff that happens. You can slap them on the wrist, but if you're turning around and using it for marketing, it also makes me wonder how serious you are about controlling it.
See, I think they do it to attract new viewers, and to bring in the crowd that they didn't have, and it ruins it for race fans like us, because we just, like, I heard Mark Martin talk about it, like, classic race fans, like, we don't care if Kyle Busch goes out there and dominates a race and wins, like, or has a mistake and has to start 20th with 30 to go, and he has to drive back through the field. Like, that's racing. I don't like this current NASCAR.
So I will say, and this is kind of off topic, but a little bit on the same. There was a Supercross race a couple of weeks ago where somebody had crashed and gotten hurt, and they red flagged the race, and there was only maybe 2 minutes left in the race, so they were going to get basically a green white checker finish. Um, and the bike that was in the lead, he had like an 11-second lead, and it's kind of the same thing where they restarted him single file on the main start straight, and within 2 corners he got taken out. And a lot of the Supercross fans, I don't think they had ever experienced the green white checkered before, and there was a ton of outrage. Like, that everybody thought that he should have gotten a like almost a head start for the basically green white checker. I don't think NASCAR will ever go that route, but I could even see, like, especially at some of the short tracks, if they went single file on a restart, it might clean up some of it. Or even if a green white checker goes, like, if you have to have two, the second one should probably be single file, just as like a punishment to the field. Like, you guys couldn't do it the first time, so now here's your punishment. Now you have to do it single file. um I think that might help.
So
I
I started listening to the Dale Jr. download this morning because I wanted to hear what he had to say about Sidney Smith. And the more I listened, I still need to finish the last half of the episode, but he actually briefly talked about some of the deterrents for some of the racing, the crazy restarts at the end and things like that. And he kind of brought up the point of NASCAR getting involved in race and having somebody in the booth that would look at something that happened on track and just be like, yeah, that was dumb as shit. You're going to the back of the field. He said that for the cars tour specifically, the way they do it is when there's two cars involved in an incident, it doesn't matter whether the car is at fault or not. Both cars go to the back of the field. And he said the reason they do it is because he gave the example of Landon Huffman, and I want to say he said, probably going to get the name wrong, Ryan Millington, a couple weeks ago. Apparently, there was an incident, and he said that he doesn't think that Landon Huffman was at fault, but what happened was because both cars were in the incident running for third place, obviously they both go to the back of the field. But he said, the way the rule is set up, he didn't go to the officials afterwards bitching about the rule because they both knew what the rule was. He was mad at Ryan Millington for causing the incident that sent him to the back. Um, and I don't know if we need to go that far, but I think between Lane's idea, whether it be single file restarts, whatever that looks like, or just having a black and white penalty of if you're involved in an accident you go to the back of the field. I don't know what the answer is, but I do hope that NASCAR will address it in some way and start penalizing in race, because I think it would be more of a deterrent than what they've got right now.
The only thing that I could see that would be an issue with penalizing mid race is like if you're on the last green white checker and you knock somebody out of the way, the race is then just over at that point. I don't know if you can really. It would be like tail end of the longest line after the race is over, so it'd be a post race penalty, and then I think at that point you're going to get into people trying to argue their point and all this. So
Yeah, and I see the point. I think that would there's obviously some logistics they'd have to iron out. Whether they want to say specifically if a caution is brought out that it's an issue, or if they want to look at something post race and decide whether it was rough driving and say, okay, we're going to place you at the tail end of the longest line, and that's the points that you get for the race. Something like that. Um, it would for sure be a deterrent. But also, I think the problem is NASCAR wants stuff like that because they want exciting racing, and I think they're too afraid to step in too much because then if the product gets hurt by guys not roughing each other up, then obviously that kind of makes the product that much worse for fans in their eyes, and they want that drama aspect.
yeah, I
Stick
think
to it.
the quick and easy way to fix a lot of it is take everything out of the front of the car and except the radiator, so that when you hit somebody, you knock the radiator out of your car and you have to go to the garage and fix it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. People were talking about how bad the race on Saturday was with guys trying dive bombs. I mean, Sunday I saw several guys do the same thing. The problem is the car on Sunday is built to withstand stuff like that. You can take more hits and you don't cave in your nose like you do on Saturday. And so it also was happening in the back of the field. You weren't seeing it up at the front as much, but the Cup guys are not shy at doing it either.
So speaking of depressing, how do you think Liam Lawson feels?
Oof, brother. So hot take. I think he's actually pumped. I think probably there was that initial disappointment, but I think probably as the week has gone on, this is great for him because if he goes and performs in the V carb or sorry, the Racing Bull now, then it pretty much confirms what everybody already knows is it's just that second car. But obviously, if he doesn't go and perform, which I don't think is going to happen, then we're having a different conversation.
That's
Yeah.
I think depending on how the weekend goes, if he out qualifies Yuki, it's gonna look really really bad for Red Bull.
Bro,
They're
I know that I don't really know much about this, but I was telling Caleb this earlier. I really like those white cars.
Oh yeah, those
oh
are
yeah, they're
clean
great.
looking. They look great.
To go back to the whole Liam Lawson thing, um, if he does bad now, like he didn't do very well in the Red Bull. If he does bad in the Racing Bull now, um, they're gonna send his ass back to Japan for Super Formula, and they're gonna be like, have at it. You were just because he can't get back to F2. Uh, and obviously you want to go back to F3. Because like once you I think once you do F1, I don't think you can go back down. I don't think it's like NASCAR where you can go Cup, Xfinity, Cup again. I think it's like once you hit F1, like it's either F1 or you go do something else. Um,
I guarantee you, if it fails, there will be IndyCar teams calling him. They will be on his doorstep Monday morning.
oh, absolutely. And you see some drivers that didn't make it to Formula One that have gone to IndyCar. Um, the first one that pops up in my mind is Callum Ilott. Um, he races IndyCar now, and he didn't make it. Um, Jack Aiken, he doesn't race IndyCar, but he races IMSA and WEC. Um, so like and he raced he filled in for Williams that little bit of time a few seasons ago. Um, so like these drivers that don't have very long stints, they kind of get shipped to other places. And I don't think Liam's gonna go because Liam raced DTM for a while, um, and did that, and he was pretty good at that. But I think he's gonna stay in the open wheel realm. I think that's where he's the best. Obviously not right now, but um, I think he's really got to make that Racing Bull seem like it is the Red Bull seat. He's really got to make something happen, or like I said, they're gonna ship his ass back to Japan.
Yeah, I think the other thing to keep in mind too is so Liam is unfortunately in a spot where the Racing Bulls have actually been incredibly fast the first three races of the season, but they have not scored the way they should have because their strategy has been horrendous. They did it last year with Daniel a couple times, and this year it's through the first 3 weeks it's been just as bad.
So if Yuki doesn't do well, and obviously you've taken Liam out of that spot, do you bring back Daniel Ricciardo, or is he completely out of it?
I just don't see how they bring him back. I mean, as much as I'd love to see Daniel back in a Red Bull, even if he comes back, it's only through the end of the season. There's no way that's a sustainable answer for them. They have to find somebody to get in that second seat, and they have to fix that car.
Is he
You know,
signed on as a reserve driver anywhere right now?
I don't think so. Not as far as I'm aware of. Somebody said that they saw him in the paddock in Australia on the Wednesday before the race, but that he left prior to media day when all the teams were there. But as far as I know of, he's not signed as a reserve for anybody. So let me ask this: what after the performances of Checo last year and Liam for the first two races? I don't know why I said three earlier. Liam through the first two races. What is a successful weekend for Yuki this weekend?
points.
Points.
Points. He's got to score points because if he doesn't score points, then he's in the same boat as Liam. Because Liam didn't score points either his races he had with Red Bull. I mean he was doing good in the V carb, but he didn't really translate very well to the Red Bull, and we've seen that in Australia and China.
I think I agree with that. I think he probably needs to be 12th or higher for Q. If he could be 12th or higher and get points, I think that's honestly I think that's going to look like a masterclass weekend after Liam getting dropped after two races and Checo last season.
You know, Checo is actually, yeah, I had seen something, and I don't know how true this is, but I mean, they're talking about Checo is a lead candidate for that Cadillac seat next year, um, which I don't know. I don't know if he is the Minister of Defense anymore. He definitely wasn't showing it last season. Um, but he, I don't know. I think there's definitely going to be an American in that seat, whether it be Colton Herta or somebody else that they choose. Um, but where does the other seat go? Will it be Checo? Will it be somebody else? Daniel Ricciardo. I don't know.
I kind of think it goes to Pato. I
Really?
know, I know Pato. I know Pato has all the ties to McLaren, but I could see Cadillac wanting to import a young up and coming racer. Like Daniel and Sergio are they're both 35 years old. I don't see Cadillac being like, "Yes, we're in Formula 1. We have these great drivers who are kind of past their prime, but we're going to try to get some life out of them." I think I could see I could see them trying to really push to get either probably Pato and maybe Colton too. Like if they could pull both of those drivers from IndyCar, that would be huge.
Yeah, I agree with that because I think the thing to remember is Cadillac is going to want to establish a brand, and this is no disrespect to Sergio or Daniel, either one, but you're not going to build a brand with those two at their age, because also, you know, nobody really wanted Daniel. The only reason Daniel was in F1 was because he had the ties to the Red Bull seat, and he was one of the last people that had had success in that seat, and it was almost like a failsafe. But outside of that, I mean, McLaren terminated his contract early so they could get Oscar in there, obviously. But I think, especially with all the young drivers in F1, F2, I mean, there's clearly a lot of talent there. I think they're better off building with somebody like a Pato Award or just somebody younger in the formula pipeline rather than trying to, I don't want to say chase ghosts, but going after somebody like Daniel and Sergio, because at that age, you're hoping that they can maintain consistency, but they're not really that splash that I'm assuming Cadillac is going to want to make when they first get into the sport.
Not everybody is Fernando Alonso, that's for sure.
Well,
God love that man.
When Alex Albon went to Williams a few seasons ago, when he went to Williams, he was still a Red Bull driver, and his helmet still had like the Red Bull like branding, but he was a Williams driver, and Williams had Mercedes engines. Um, you were talking about Pato and McLaren, Cadillac and all that other stuff. Maybe there's a chance McLaren could do what they did, like Red Bull did with Albon, and let Williams kind of lease him out for the time being, just to kind of get him some experience to where maybe you could mold him into a McLaren seat.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely something that could happen, I'm sure.
I personally don't see the McLaren lineup changing for the next probably 5 to 7 years. I think Lando and Oscar pretty much have that on lock.
That is a
So the only thing that could change that, and I'll say this, we've kind of touched on this, is I think at one point, I think my hot take for this season is we're going to see a little bit of friction in that team because both of those guys are so talented. And I think at some point, and I'm anticipating it being Lando because I think McLaren is going to commit longer term to Oscar. I would not be surprised if one of the two is leaving sooner. It's probably Lando.
eh, I don't know. I mean,
I know you don't agree with me on that, but if reading the tea leaves, it just feels like they expect Oscar to be a world champion, and they're hoping Lando can be a world champion.
I wouldn't. I don't. I don't see that happening until either Lewis retires or another coveted seat opens up.
I don't know. There's so many moving parts and variables within the F1 world that really change week to week and season to season. 7 years is a very long time to have the same driver lineup. That is if that is the driver lineup they have for the next 5-7 years, they did something right. And especially if they can keep the consistency going and keep racking off these 1-2 finishes like they have been. Um, I I mean I agree. You just don't see that a lot in Formula One. It's such a cutthroat sport. Um, you're not performing, Liam Lawson happens. Um, but so many things change in there. Um, we are kind of nearing the end of our podcast. Um, I would like to go ahead and say one thing real quick. 11 against the world. We'll leave that there.
Listen. I didn't say
So
nothing through
corny.
the F1
So
topic
corny.
because I know nothing about that. But you got me started now.
Speak
That
on it, Jacob. Speak on it.
That man is so cringe.
Amen.
He is the definition of short track racing.
We do not care. Listen,
I care. I
big,
care.
big Denny Hamlin fan here. We do not
Chase
care.
Elliott fan.
No,
Agree,
no,
Chase
no,
Elliott fan.
no, 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 no.
Pictures to prove it.
So
I,
Lane, so this is backstory on Caleb here. Caleb, when Chase Elliott was winning all of the road courses, Caleb was like, "Oh yeah, that's my favorite driver because he's the best road course racer in the Cup Series." And now it's all of a sudden it's a Denny Hamilton glaze.
I mean, I guess everybody's allowed to be wrong every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, that's accurate.
I know
He's just wrong.
I was wrong with Chase Elliott. I made my decision. I went to Denny Hamlin. To the
But
goat. Um, so
how is he a goat when Chase Elliott has more chips than him?
okay, that Mickey Mouse ass championship he's got. It's
Uh,
okay,
Mickey Mouse is better than none.
huh?
Mickey Mouse
I
Championship is better than none.
I guess, brother. Just 11 against
I
the
mean,
world.
listen, if you
You're
wanna if
proving
you
it
wanna
right
sip
now.
on that, no, you're not. If you wanna sip on that cocaine, you go right ahead.
But Lane, who's your driver? Who do you pull for?
So I was about to say, Caleb, I don't really have a whole lot of room to speak because growing up, my favorite driver was Mark Martin. So I kind of get where you're at with that, but at the moment, since Blaney has family ties to Ohio, I've become a Blaney fan. Um, just out of purely this is where he's from type of thing. So
Okay. Yeah, my father is a Ryan Blaney fan. He was a big Dave Blaney fan, so he followed the family and now he likes Ryan.
Dave. Remember when he almost won that Daytona 500 because Juan Pablo hit the jet dryer?
Oof.
uh,
Was that
but
the year on the backstretch with all the cell phones?
yeah, when
Yeah.
that was
That
2012.
was that was the night that Dale Jr. got Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I
And
thought.
I would say Brad took out his
I was
phone and
gonna say
started taking.
Brad was like one of the main ones I remember.
Um,
Yeah, no, him and Dale had a race to the porta potty on the backstretch infield wall. I remember that. It's actually kind of funny. Brad has had some pretty infamous moments just on the backstretch at Daytona because obviously you remember him trying to drive in circles to put out the fire. What, last season?
it's
Yeah.
it's it's crazy to like think about. Like they had to like repave that portion of the track so they could get back racing because that race was already delayed because of rain. And but yeah, like I said earlier, for I kind of got everyone riled up. We are nearing the end of our podcast. This is the portion where we're gonna shout out our sponsors. Uh, you know, Ghost Athletics, sponsor of the CRL Truck Series on Monday nights, which you can catch on OSR Network starting April 14th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. You also have on Wednesday nights on OSR Network the CRL ARCA series starting up April 16th, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, OSR Network. Without our sponsors, none of this would be possible. The what we're able to do with the league, this podcast, nothing would really be possible without our sponsors. So we're very thankful to them, and we have more sponsors that over the course of time, as the season kind of progresses, we'll start kind of shouting out a little bit more as things kind of start to finalize. But yeah, huge shout out to our sponsors: Ghost Athletics, Grant Designs. It was a really good episode. We were really happy to have Lane on. Now a CRL Hall of Famer and two-time champion. Um, Jacob, Rob, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just again, final congratulations to Lane. It's well deserved. You know, you were here long before I was here, but you've left your mark over the years. You know, it's been a blast getting a race with you, getting my ass kicked by you, all the other, you know, fun times I've had looking at your bumper. Uh, And then on the real side, on the NASCAR side, the last thing I'll leave it is Dennis Hamlin, if he does not win a championship before his career is over, failure. He is not an underdog. I'll leave it
Oh
at
my
that.
God.
Yeah, congratulations on your Hall of Fame induction, Lane. It's like Rob said and Caleb said, well deserved. You are what a lot of us when we joined in to the league, you were that guy that we needed to beat every week, and you you were the main reason why I got as fast as I did and started taking this league a lot more serious because I was tired of getting my ass kicked by you every single week. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Thank you guys. It really does mean a lot to me. Like I said, I really like running this league. It's really probably one of the highlights of my week. Just getting to hang out and race. So
Well, we appreciate you spending some time with us here tonight for this podcast. Um, you can catch the CRL podcast every Friday morning, 10 a.m. Spotify, YouTube. Um, until next time, bye bye.